Well, no. The linear way of narrating the world, making linear films, was in a way a step into the wrong direction in the first place. To make an order in things in a linear way doesn't really make sense. It doesn't make sense because the world doesn't work like that, and another thing doesn't work like that: our brain. Our brain doesn't work linear. This way of telling stories in a non-linear, interactive way is like we used to do in the past, when people were sitting around the fireplace and talking and narrating, trying to understand the world. I think that's the natural way how we can use our brain to make sense of the things around us. What was not possible in the past, in the last 120 years, was to narrate filmic with the tools of camera and our audio recording in a non-linear way. But we can do so now with the help of computers. Computers enable us to narrate in a very ancient way, in a very human way. So why did we put things in a linear order? And I thought quite a long time about it, and I think the answer is very simple. Because of technical needs. Because film was always stored on a reel. So it had to be linear, to be transported to other people, shown in cinemas. Like, the technicality defined the linearity. Computers give us new opportunities. There are new things being developed, or let's say they are practiced. A lot of new ways of narrating grow in the internet. I don't think that they are invented. The inventions took place 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. That was when people really thought about it and made inventions. And now, like, the things are put into reality, put into practice. I think the future of storytelling is rule-based storytelling, where the author defines how things come together, but he's not predefining the thoughts of the viewers. He's not predefining the experiences of the viewers. I thought that an explosion might happen in the near future, but that was 15 years ago. And then the explosion never really happened. I mean, what we can see is like that there is a little bit of an increase in interactive narration. We can see that coming up, but it's more like a growing process than an explosion. I'm convinced that this way of narration, I would call it rule-based narration, will be the dominant form of narrating in the future, of discussing reality in the future. But I have no idea how long it might take. 15 years ago, I thought it takes another 5 years. That was obviously not true. And now I would say maybe it takes 50 years, maybe it takes 500 years. But I'm sure that this is the way that we will narrate the world in the future, because this way of narrating the world makes sense. I'm a bit frustrated because I thought the development might be much faster, and I also think that the development kind of goes into the wrong direction, really, because what computers can give us in terms of narration is that we can tell stories where the author collects everything that he feels is important, but he doesn't decide on the order of things. He doesn't pre-think what the viewer experiences. which gives an enormous freedom for the author, because he gets into that position where he's the medium whose job is to collect the things, and then you can use the multiplicity, the many brains of the viewers to make sense of what the author found. Well, I think that the author is still very important. He's the key figure in making a documentary. He's the person that goes out into this difficult, messy world and collects the bits and pieces that the author thinks make sense to discuss. But the author of the future is not the person who decides what the reality is. He doesn't create a full picture that he gives to the viewer, and the viewer can just take it in. So the author of the past was much more, or the author of the current time is much more a person that is like a priest that gives you his idea about what is right and what is wrong. The author of the future gives you options. And then you, as the viewer, you look at it and you can take the things that you find interesting. You can not take the things that you don't find so interesting for you. You can have a very tolerant worldview. You can develop a society with a narration of the future, can develop a very tolerant view on the world. Things are possible, and maybe I don't like it, but it's okay. I don't like it, other people might like it. It's okay. Everyone is right. Every viewpoint, every angle is right. I think it's the job of economy to understand that this is great. We should use that. That makes sense to discuss, to talk about reality in that way. So in a way, it's the job of economy to find out what the right business model is. I'm actually quite worried that the business world has a certain idea about how storytelling works. And their way of thinking is not to come up with the best way how we use narration to make sense of the things around us. How we use narration, how we use storytelling to come up with the best solutions for the problems that we face as people. Economy wants to make more money, and I think they very often use the formats that were successful in the past to make money, and they use these formats in the future. But in the end, it's not about making money. The old way of narration was between extremes. Either something is really bad or really good. This is like how narrations, linear narrations, are successful. But what if the solution for a concrete problem lies in the middle of good and bad? And I think that most solutions for the problems that we face are right in the middle and not the extremes. But we discuss the extremes. I think we are wasting a lot of time. At the moment, humans are in charge of thinking and making sense of the world and developing things further. And in the future, computers, or the thing that comes after the computer, will take over in making sense of the world. And I imagine that on one sunny Sunday afternoon, the big computer will be ready, and on that day the computer will take in all the information that is there, all the things that humans have developed in the past, and the computer will take it in and start from there. Start thinking from there. And what we do now is that we digitalize all the stuff that has been produced over the time that we can oversee, to prepare it for the computer. So what I do in my projects, that in all the films that I make, I have something for computers, something where I think that computers really enjoy taking that in. A good educator is always interactive. He always takes care about his students, the people that he talks to. So if I want to teach someone, I want to make sure that they are not falling asleep. I want to make sure to understand where they are. I want to be interactive. So you don't want to make films for sleeping people. Or maybe you want. Maybe you are a linear filmmaker and then you don't care if your audience is asleep. Or you have to use all kinds of tricks to make them wake up or not fall asleep in the first place. You have to be exciting. You have to be seductive to your audience. You have to engage them to make sure that they are not asleep.
First time I enjoyed a record session.